going live. I always have to check if this is working. I think it is. Check 1, 2. Yeah, it's working. When I see the audio moving on the meter, I know it's working. So just my regular shout out that I'm doing. It's becoming a habit of just randomly saying hello and speaking my mind live. It seems very constructive because it engages in conversation and creative thinking. So that's a good thing. And as many of you know, I've been working on these quantum cells here. Pretty interesting effects. And I got to clean up now. That's always the fun part, cleaning up a project after you're done. So I don't even remember what I was doing here last night. It was a pretty late. Oh, I see. I had a transistor connected on one of the cells, there it is, acting as an amplifier to the ACs through the bias, the base of the other cell here. And I wanted to see what peaks I could get through amplification. And it was working somewhat, but I would need to make the system better, like true coils, because the transistor was just shorting on itself, you know. If you're running it as a basic amplifier, you'd like the DC to go through at least a speaker or a capacitor or something to decouple the DC from the AC amplification waves. But needless to say, I just wanted to see what that was going to show on my meter here on the scope, and that was interesting. So sometimes I just do these random experiments at night if I can't sleep or whatever. And that works. So I hope everyone is doing well today. A beautiful Saturday here with the sun shining after like 2 weeks of miserable rain and cold. Like we're talking about, you know, mid to lower 30 Fahrenheit's kind of rainy, even icy cold. So it's about time, you know. I think it's going to be in the 70s today. So it's already nice. First time I can go out there without a t-shirt. I mean, without a coat. No, I'm not into going out there naked too much, you know, especially around here. But what I was trying to say is a jacket, right? You can be out there in the t-shirt. So that's nice to feel the sun for like months and months and months. I live in the far northern Ontario, Cochrane. So it's like basically dead on the 49 parallel. And it gets pretty cold up here. So let's see now what I was just thinking of, you know, multi-dimensions and quantum physics and the vacuum and everything. And on the side, I've explained this too in some of my videos. I've always been, since a kid, I've been able to do, you know, the outer bodies and the lucid dreamings and all of that. But what interests me is always more of the mechanisms behind the effects, right? Which fits a lot into the quantum physics, the multi-infinite dimensions, right? So when you look at it in that perspective, every time I or anyone has an out-of-body experience, a lucid dream, for people who practice this, usually do it for the entertainment value. Like they like to be quote unquote aware of them being able to like feel their bodies fly and see their community from above while they doing things, you know, you normally couldn't do to the constraints of our physical reality and our laws of physics in this universe. So understanding the infinite realm that we live in, whenever any dream, any thought, anything you think is actually unique to yourself is not. You're just getting an imprint, an echo of what's already stored basically as information in the vacuum. Either it's already happened in some universe, it hasn't happened in some universe, or it's happening. It might be completely decoupled from our time perspective as well. That's part of the infinity. But what's really interesting is every time you ponder, you get an idea of something, that idea is not actually unique to you. All that feels unique is that illusion of you processing in our real time all that information to form what we perceive as reality. So that's very interesting to know. So there's a sense of natural quantum entanglement that goes on naturally through our minds, which is basically the scalar transceiver, which I've talked about in other videos here, the interface that links us to this invisible world, if that's what you want to call it. And with that said, let's say you're having a lucid dream, where all of a sudden you're having what appears to be a normal dream, which, understanding the quantum perspective, is just an echo, a playback of something that happened or is about to happen. It's something that actually happens in some universe, and you're just getting, what you're getting is a playback version of that in your version of the now. And which is fine on its own. It's really interesting. So when you wake up and have an interesting dream or something about, I spoke to someone I didn't speak of, or I had a great idea, even though they're unconscious dreams, it's still an image, a playback basically of something that's happened or about to happen in some similar parallel universe of sorts. If you understand infinity, that's what actually happens here. So, which is basically a passive but very natural system. We're all entangled in it. And so I have ethical concerns now, because understanding this, if you are to have fun, let's say to have a lucid dream, an out-of-body experience, whatever you want to call it, and all of a sudden I'm having I wake up and I have the memory of this, where the dream was normal. It was an unconscious dream. I was walking home and all of a sudden I realized I was dreaming, and hey, this is fun. So I'm going to lift off and just consciously tell myself I'm going to fly now, and I can feel myself flying, and this is great. This is wonderful. And then, a minute or two goes by, I wake up and that was fun, and my life goes on such as it is. But understanding the quantum mechanics of what actually went on there was a form of quantum entanglement. And for a moment, I got a copy of, a parallel universe as something that really happens. And parallel universes, by the way, can have different sets of rules of physics and material worlds and everything. So what's not possible here might be very well possible in some other form of parallel universes. Of course, the infinity really means infinite possibilities along with those parallel universes. So here I am, waking up in this projection. So knowing what that means is that someplace, somewhere, there was a version of me minding his own business, let's say in this universe, working on bidinis with my own mind and memories. And all of a sudden, through quantum entanglement, some dreamer of some distant universe, through entanglement, we both combine for a moment. What happens is it's almost like the left brain and right brain, two separate personalities, but they become one. So what happens is, while I'm there in the dream, all of a sudden I have access to his memories, what's going on in that world, and what as much as what I'm doing at the moment here. So if you see where I'm getting at, is basically it's a form of intrusive, where this actually happens somewhere, where someone is just minding their own business, and all of a sudden we become one. And for those 2-3 minutes, he has my memories of my intent of wanting to have a lucid dream. You see what I'm getting at? And perhaps the laws of physics are different in that universe, where all they need is a strong conscious will and they can fly. But maybe they don't know that there. Maybe, So next thing you know, through my conscious will, he's flying and fully aware of that. I'm having the time of my life. I'm back here after I've had my dream. But whatever goes on in that universe, he still lives on, that version of me. So what happens then? Conveniently, I'm gone. I had my fun. But is that other version of me traumatized for life? Is there going to be a PTSD effect where he thinks he hallucinated some moment where he was mowing the lawn, and all of a sudden he had like a connection with some other higher form of himself, and he went for a trip and started flying and remembers that, and then he dropped in the lake when I woke up. And then, everybody thinks he's a weirdo, and that ruins this person's life, So you have to be very, what I'm getting at is when you start messing around with quantum entanglement, you have to have a really high sense of courtesy and understand that there could be like an intrusion factor to it. Like, you wouldn't want any of this to happen to you. So that's why I'm very interested in using electrical methods instead, because we can simulate the same effects of gravity electrically. The electrical phenomena meets the requirements to be able to manipulate the gravity at the quantum scale, which could give us the same effects of quantum entanglement. So in essence, the scalar wave communications, the modulations of gravity waves, is an electrical way to be able to exchange voluntarily informations between two parallel universes without actually, taking over one's essence and combining into one and having the whole full blown, this can screw up people's lives. So I definitely wouldn't want it to happen to me. So I think, and a lot safer too, like, because it's infinite, the most horrors could become reality if you want to imagine it. It's enough to drive one person nuts. So you have to filter out what you're consciously not interested in and focus on what you're interested in, because our conscious minds are not designed to think in this infinite loop. It comes to us as a paradox. So if you think too much into it, you'll trigger depression and you'll deteriorate your health. So it's just, don't try and compute it, it could actually screw you up. So yeah, I wanted to put that out there, and some people wonder why I'm so interested into like the transmutation effects, because when you are able to restructuralize the information that's embedded within the vacuum, then you can create real physical changes. For example, modify the actual properties of a crystal lattice. So for energy generation properties, that's very applicable, but I necessarily wouldn't want to do it all the time by initiating, a full-blown out-of-body experience and potentially, intruding on someone else's normal life, unless that's what they want too, But again, in infinite possibilities, it might not always be what your intent is on the other end. You have good intents, but it ends up, screwing somebody else over. You wouldn't want to. I wouldn't, anyways. So yeah, very interesting stuff, but you got to have, a strong head on your shoulders to really understand that messing around with infinity is not for the faint of heart. It could literally drive you insane mentally. So you have to keep a good grounded foundational roots of what your essence is, like your root, your home, what my perspective is, what my version of myself is, and what's the difference between an external influence through quantum entanglement, which may seem like it's me, but it's not. Like I said, some of this stuff is enough. It could really make you go to the insane. You don't want to do that. So that's the caution. It's not for everyone to play with. You need to have a strong mind. So yeah, that's basically what I'm pondering about today and figuring out what I want to do. I want to really start studying the interactions at the quantum scale. I was into that a little bit earlier this year in the winter time, but I didn't have all the equipment I needed. So now I'm slowly, ordering pieces here and there, surplus equipment, control panels, and I'll start getting into the transmutation stuff. That's going to be a lot of fun. I can tell that with everything I know and what I want to do, then I'm going to make some pretty good leeways in that field for sure. Just got to work on the setup, and we got to stay safe, folks. Safety, so much if you don't care about yourself is one thing, but you don't want to hurt others around you either in all of this. Even your animals, your pets, and things like that. Just a little bit of common sense courtesy here. So I'm just going to turn around for a moment to see a glimpse of what I've been missing in the chat if anybody's there. So again, my apologies. It's just the camera's here and the computer's on the other side. Limited space. It's not a recording studio here, so. Yeah, the Monroe Institute. I was in that when I was like 15 and 16. They had like I think a little program for teens or something, or young people. And I got into the Rosicrucians pretty well, went all the way to the end because they were pretty cheap. They were still paid, not like the Masonic people, but like half the price. And you didn't have to go to all of the ceremonies. They were all self-initiated. They give you the monographs. It's a lot of garbage though, because it's just their own ways of spinning out quantum mechanics to make it sound like it's their agenda. But they tap into all the same natural sources. The ancients knew about these quantum resonance effects of the gravity waves and what we call psychic communications. All of that was explored, and the Elites know all about it in their own terminology through the occult-like organizations like the Masonic people and all of those. It's just, they have their own agenda, obviously, and it didn't align with what I had. So with the Rosicrucians, you can retire. You're just considered a non-active member. So I'm a non-active member of a Rosicrucians. Yeah, so if you're into that, for what it's worth, it's easier to get into the Rosicrucians. They speed you through all of the monographs and levels. And yeah. But yeah, I totally lost interest in the esoterical. Once I understood, the quantum dynamics part of it, I actually started laughing because I said, these people don't even know what it is they're playing with, and they're making it sound like it's a cliche, kind of only the masters can find out about these universal powers. And all right, whatever. But that's how the world goes round, right? You've got the elites that try and control the slaves. And that's why this free energy stuff is not going out, because you've got a industry and they don't want to rattle that income. No, no, no. Yet they try and use these very natural systems, of quantum entanglement and everything to try and keep, the general population numb and to profit on everything and stay in power. But I don't get too much into the politics of things. It's just, I rather focus on just the theories, and because you can go on and on and on with politics, right? And then it starts pissing people off. Then you start, getting, the equivalent of a hit on you, right? Wherever you go, political groups start getting angry at you. You're either on one side or on another. I'm just on the side to make the world a better place. How's that? And maybe extend my life a little bit. I'd like to do that. I'm really having problems, like depression-wise problems with the idea of getting older. And it's starting pretty early, so I don't like that. But I know it happens to everyone, but I have ideas, mostly fantasies at this point, but maybe some of this stuff could lead to age regression technologies, which would be nice. But then again, how far can you talk about this stuff? If it works, how long before governments find out? You're 80, and next thing you know, you look like you're 50. The more people you know, the more people will start suspecting things. You don't want to end up in the government Area 51 underground lab for the rest of your life being inspected because they want to know what kind of secret you got, right? So it becomes a very, even as a philosophical discussion, there's a lot of like, you know, serious points to consider. What ifs? What would happen? You know, governments won't care about your well-being at that point. Even if they know the technology exists, they won't want everybody else to have it. But then if you do that, you have to hide from society. What's the good of that if, okay, I've figured out how to basically not age, but how do you integrate in society without being noticed, without something bad? I mean, it's impossible. Unless you play a game, I guess, and do a disguise and go missing every 40 years or so and start a new identity, grow a mustache, go somewhere and pose that as a undocumented somewhere and start a quote unquote new life, new people, new friends. 40 years goes by, oof, disappear again, mysterious disappearance. It would be the only way because, you know, you wouldn't be able to live a life, let's say as Joel Legacy, and go on YouTube and say, yeah, I'm 120 years old and I don't look a day over 50. That wouldn't work. I wouldn't be around. Someone would take me away just because, you know. So yeah, if I ever disappear once I'm like 80, look on YouTube for Joel Legacy with the Y instead of the E. No, I'm just joking. It's just sometimes it's healthy to fantasize too, you know. Takes the edge off. Hmm. Yeah, the gravity stuff does look more and more promising. That's why I'm getting into it there because I think it's a good time because I've noticed a lot of the vintage equipment, the prices is going way like 10 years ago. I looked at some of this stuff, you know, $10,000 for like really old stuff. Now, most of the vintage stuff, you know, into the 80s, 100, 100, 100. Some of it is pretty stable, especially when you're dealing with power supplies and stuff. All that digital switching it today does garbage, can't handle inductive kickback events of anything. So even tube stuff, if you've got ways to fix it, is good for this kind of experiment. But yeah, I mean, even a box of tested tubes, they're not that expensive. Tube tester, you know, I used to have one, unfortunately. But yeah, you can get one of those and service your own. Because you know that the new power supplies take a beating, right? Because when you start, they're not designed to handle phase variance and things like that unless you design them. But there used to be, you know, very expensive bench equipment that had all these features built in. But you know, $20,000 later wasn't something I could do. But now I'm seeing the stuff on eBay, $100, $150. So what? You know, it's 200 pounds and it comes from the 80s. If it works and it does the job, it opens up that avenue for me to experiment with that kind of a setup now. So yeah, my rack mount is going to be big. It's going to be heavy. It's going to be, oh boy, but hey, at least I can experiment now. So really grateful for that. Yep. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I also want to transmutate crystals. I'm going to build the Bedini crystal and not for just power cells. Everyone's been doing that. I don't want to replicate what everyone else does. I want to condition them. I want to actually change at the atomic level the crystal lattice, give it a different properties or enhancements. And yeah, that'll be interesting. Making hybrid, even maybe new elements, that'd be interesting with unique properties. It could all be done with a little bit of experimentation. Just a lot of people, especially the professional institutions, nothing to see here, so why bother? Well, there's actually a lot to see here. We've only scratched the surface, as the thing. Somebody's got to do it, even as a hobby, if it interests them. Why not? I mean, if I could still live and pay the rent and have my heat, if it's $100 a month for a hobby, I mean, it's not any different than, going out bowling for a month and spending the feast for that club. That's what I'm into. That's what I'm into. So, with that said, folks, thank you for spending your time with me once again. I really enjoy these random chit chats, just go all over the place. And I will keep you posted. And one thing too is I updated my YouTube channel with playlists with every categories to Bedini, Don Smith, theoretical applications, status update, because people keep asking a lot of questions, right? About how do you do this? Give me a schematic for that. And it's just so much of having to repeat myself over and over. So instead of having to browse through like hundreds of videos, I made it all neat into all these categorized playlists. So it'll be a lot easier to find information I've published anyways. So with that said, folks, have yourselves a great day. Thank you. Just wrapping up here, saying bye-bye to everyone, not to be rude, and we are going to end the stream.